think about it this way. Look at the way that they're treating Jon Stewart, who had the audacity to say both candidates are fucking old. Obviously, Trump's worse, but goddamn, both candidates are fucking old. Everyone lost their minds over it. Anyway, I'm going to call Ettingermentum right now, and we're going to hear his, he's the special election boy, so we're going to hear his perspective on it real quick. This is very frustrating. What's up, Ettingermentum?
Hey, what's up? I'm on my phone for the people listening, so if it doesn't sound like perfect, that's the reason why.
No, you sound perfect right now. There is no issue.
Yeah. So
anyway, a special election occurred in New York in George Santos's district, and now in what I suspect is a Democratic Party backed media push, they are doing a full court press on how we have to, the lessons that we learned from the special election is that we have to adopt more right-wing framing on issues such as crime, taxes, and above all, immigration. I want to hear your take because you are the special election boy. You're the special boy that, you know, is very fond of covering special elections.
Yeah. So there's a lot of particulars about this special election. People just see it as just one of many kind of races that happen that are really worth considering in context. First off, as I think most people are known, this is the George Santos district. It's New York's 3rd district. It's the it's the place he represented before he resigned. So from the get-go, this is not going to be a normal kind of election. It's in the aftermath of a scandal. Those usually benefit the opposition party even more, even if the incumbent party whose incumbent resigned or was kicked out is not tainted with that scandal. They're just going to be associated with it. The second fact is that the Democrat running here was not just any kind of random, like, kind of candidate like Mary Peltola or Paul or Ryan in the elections 2022. Tom Suozzi, I don't know exactly how his name is pronounced. He's been in politics for 30 years. He was previously the county executive for the suburban district that encompasses most of the district. He represented the district for 3 terms in Congress before he ran for New York governor, and that was why he left the seat in 2022, and that's how Santos got elected. So he's a very known quantity. He's won elections 3 times in the district, all by margins, I believe, that were greater than the one he won this time. In 2020, he won by 12 points. This time, he's won by about 7. And and the Republican there that they were running is like an IDF, like veteran, like Ethiopian immigrant who was a registered Democrat before she was selected by the party to run, nowhere near his profile. So all of these factors adding together, you're going to have a situation where the Democrat there, all else is equal, is going to be very favored. So especially
with the George Santos stink too. Before we even get to the individual issues and who actually was favored over the other, which I'm sure you're going to bring up, considering that like Suozzi, however you fucking say his name, was not exactly winning on any of the issues that the Democratic Party learned the worst lessons off of, supposedly. I think personally that like the most prescient outcome here, or like what we need to take away from this, is that yes, if you run a fucking charlatan con man like George Santos and everyone in the district is saying like, we just got duped, we need someone else, like, yeah, the Republican Party is not going to recover from that regardless, even if it was a deep red district, in my opinion.
Yeah, we know that, especially if the Democrats are running like a very, very strong candidate, like a very well-known, popular quasi-incumbent like Suozzi. Like, it's not just like they're running some random guy. Suozzi is tremendously. I was looking at the Siena poll, which is one of the best pollsters out there. They did a poll on this district a week or so before, I think a week ago, and so they polled both the presidential race and the congressional race. Suozzi was net favorable. He had a net favorable rating of 2 points. In contrast, Biden had a net favorable rating of, I think, -18. So it's a totally different situation. It's not like you can't extrapolate to the presidential race at all. In one situation, you have a moderate Democrat who's very well known and is seen as experienced and like effective. And the other, you have someone like Biden, who's one of the most unpopular politicians in the country. So I think the difference in the outcome in that race and in the poll had Trump leading Biden in the district at the same time it had Suozzi leading his opponent. The question is that of competence and like effectiveness than it is anything related to ideology, because Suozzi and Biden have nearly identical positions, It's just that one is seen as a doddering elderly man and the other is seen as an effective, experienced local politician.
Yeah, especially juxtaposed with like the doddering charlatan con man that he was supposed to replace if elected.
Yeah, it's a perfect contrast. You could not ask for anything better.
Yeah. So having said all of this, even though it's not an analog for the general election at all, it does seem like the Democrats are leaning on the classic "we want to lose" attitude that they've always had. Look, I've often talked about a couple things that the Republican Party will never be outflanked on. One of those things, obviously, is patriotism, right?
Yeah.
You will never be able to outflank the Patriots. Donald Trump can say, fuck John McCain, he's a fucking loser, and still be considered the more patriotic candidate than the Democrat, right? Just like John Kerry tried to do that originally as a decorated Vietnam veteran, and they belittled him and said that his Purple Heart was fake and you know, that he was gay. He was fake and gay.
I'm actually a bit of a John Kerry revisionist, but like that is true. I think his 2004 performance was actually pretty respectable, all things considered. But that did happen. Obviously, it didn't go as they planned.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, he's a windsurfer. He's fake and gay. He's not a real patriot." And he fucking lost because, and time again, Democrats still did not learn the lesson from that. And you know, did the Amy McGrath play against Mitch McConnell, which was so idiotic to begin with. I mean, you could say that Mitch McConnell's an institution and is like impossible to shake, obviously, but you know, trying with that same narrative that we have like a real patriot here who like lasered children overseas with fucking drone strikes or Air Force with bombs and munitions, like that's why we're the real patriots. We should vote for Amy McGrath. It's not going to work.
You're giving into their framing. You're admitting that they're right. Why should anybody vote for you if you're admitting that they're right?
Exactly. And this is something that I basically bang my head against the wall over and over again on issues of crime. The crime narrative in the midterms was so prominent, and everyone kept saying like, no, like crime is a real problem, but we are going to be the most reactionary on crime, not the Republicans. Or even defunding the police is actually the reason why there's so much crime happening, and that Democrats are the party of funding the police. I mean, this was an abject failure from the jump, and it didn't actually give any electoral boosts.
It failed the most in places where they tried it the most. Hochul and Adams in New York were poster childs of the moderate on crime thing. All it did was end up raising the salience of the issue and costing them seats. In places where they campaigned on other issues where they were actually favored, they did much better.
And they're doing it again. As you quote retweeted, Aaron from Queens, the entire story of this election is right here. Philip only has a slim digit advantages on issues on the border Israel, while Suozzi leads by 13 points on abortion.
No, I think I actually checked the poll, and it was by more. Basically, that poll said that the Republican in that race, even after all of the time and money and effort Suozzi spent on like being like right-wing on immigration, which still was not like kind of as reactionary as some of the like hacks have made it out to be. He still talked about a pathway to citizenship and stuff. Like it wasn't like as extreme as what I mean. It was like he was calling for the border to be shut down, but it wasn't like as like how people like Senator Murphy have kind of painted as like where he was an arch reactionary. But even after all of that, he was not favored on the issue of immigration. Even in the poll where he led, voters, including voters that said they were going to vote for him, said that they still trusted his opponent more on immigration. The reason why he was winning is because he was trusted on three principal issues: democracy, competence, and abortion. Those were his three strengths in the race, and they're the reason why he won. And those are like the immutable strengths of any Democrat. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to win off of that. It's just the thing that Biden has the democracy thing on his side. He has abortion on his side. What he doesn't have is competence. He doesn't have that reputation that he can actually run the country. And that stems from age that I'm sure you've been talking about for a while.
Yes, because I want Donald Trump to win because I hate democracy and I love fascism.
Yeah,
or rather, you know what it is? I just don't like it when Democrats get to do the fascism. I love the Republican Party. I want them to do the fascism. This is something that this is something that I will never understand when people come in here and yell at me over, especially because like you have the Democratic Party now alongside the liberal media positioning themselves as the guys to go to for white nativist immigration. This is idiotic. This is bad politics and bad policy. Democrats at least are supposed to be on the side of good policy, but bad politics. Now they've just adopted bad politics and bad policy. A double bind.
It's especially like poorly informed if you understand the nature of the election. Like people are instinct in that type of media universe. They instinctually think that like if they're ever trailing in a race, the reason is because they've lost swing voters. What for Biden, and I think like a military analogy is helpful here. Biden actually does have like the flanks secured, like the swing voters. He polls well still with swing voters who are very interested in elections and always vote in every race. Democrats do well with those people. The problem is that his center of like people who don't vote as often, young voters, non-white voters, low income, low education voters, his numbers have totally tanked there. So he's fine with like the suburban people who like are really interested in January 6th or whatever. Those people have never actually left his corner. But he's facing a turnout collapse with young voters, a turnout collapse in mass defections to a rate no Democrat has ever seen in like recent history with non-whites. His center, his base has collapsed, and that's why he's trailing. If you look at the numbers and the way that those work, so if he's going to win, he needs to win back the trust of those voters. He has to give them a reason for them to turn out. I don't think that. I think that his persona makes that extremely difficult because people are just kind of primed to see this unpopular old establishment figure as somebody that they can't trust. But if they go down the road of trying to imitate Republicans on immigration after spending years talking about how it was the human rights issue of our time, it's going to look cynical. It's going to look disingenuous. It's not going to be what those people agree in, and it's going to make the problem and the reason why they're losing worse.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I do feel like, I mean, I don't know who the fuck is the guy leading the charge here, but I do feel like behind the scenes, the Democratic Party, for some reason, have decided that this is a good strategy, and it's not an accident. It does seem like there's a full court press happening right now to get the legacy publishers to adopt the notion that like the Democratic Party is the party of immigration. You will never be able to outflank the Republicans on racism. It's just not going to happen. And all he's doing, like you said, is cutting off the base of support that he desperately needs at this point, in my opinion, that from the younger voter base, from Latino voters, not like obviously Venezuelan, Cuban Latino populations in Miami, but like, or even Texas Latino voters, but like young Latino voters in every other fucking state, including Nevada, for example, like places that he desperately...
Arizona and Georgia.
Yeah, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia. Exactly. Places that he's like taking for granted currently, that he can't just win with
in all three of those states. If you look at the electoral map, and I've written a lot about this, the math for this is incredibly risky. Biden, if you look at the states he won in 2020, he has 303 electoral votes. That's the three Midwestern swing states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and the three Sunbelt swing states of Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. If he wins all three, one of those batches of three states, he wins the election. But if he loses Arizona, Nevada, and Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, his polls have him currently down by 5+ points in all three states. He will have to win every single state he won in 2020 and all three states in the Midwest, and he will win by a single electoral vote. They are cutting it extremely close.
Yeah. It's a race to the bottom on both sides, to be honest. I feel like Donald Trump is also obviously not the best candidate to run for the Republican Party either.
Historically terrible.
Yeah, so they're just like...
It's coughing baby versus coughing baby election.
Yeah, they're trying to outcompete one another on who gets to have the worst person possible for the job. But yeah, I don't know what else to make of this situation. I don't know why everyone in the Democratic Party is now pushing this agenda where they're like, you have Swalwell, who everyone's favorite sexual intercourse haver of Chinese spies, Eric Swalwell, coming out and being like, coming out and being like, it's the Republicans are the ones who don't want anything done on the immigration front. Like, look at them. All they're doing is impeaching the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and we have a really sick bill here that they're no longer, that they don't want to actually push for. We gave them everything that they wanted.
It's like trying to like count angels on like a pinhead instead of like kind of noticing the obvious, which is that if you run a guy even as generic as Suozzi or any of the other people have run in these elections, you're going to sweep Trump. Anybody but Biden is going to win this election on a walk. It won't be close. You just need somebody who can project a level of competence along with the issues that favor them, abortion and democracy and taxes. Taxes generally are pretty good for them, actually, outside of very specific areas like New York, which got screwed by the SALT tax repeal under Trump. Like your basic kind of bread and butter message that all their candidates ran on and won with in 2022 is going to be fine. There's a kind of a socially liberal inclination with the majority of the public at this point. The only way you can screw it up is running somebody and insisting on somebody who most people think is too old to serve, and you are seemingly incapable of actually getting out in public in a way that will make them think otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say on this issue. I mean, the fact that they like also separated the funding package for Ukraine and Israel. I guess like foreign policy is never the age old the oldest cliche in American media and political coverage is that foreign policy is not an issue for American voters until it becomes the issue. And I don't know if it will become the issue. But what I do see is that Trump is 10 points ahead on how he would deal with Israel-Palestine over Biden. And I think part of that is not because Biden is like, not going hard enough in support of Israel, but rather that his consistent messaging, like the leaks that keep coming out of him being like, oh, well, I said a mean word about Netanyahu behind the closed doors, while simultaneously giving him $18 billion of weapons so he can fucking laser more Palestinian children, while Netanyahu goes on television every day and is like, Joe Biden sucks, and I will never do a two-state solution immediately after Biden says he wants a two-state solution, makes it seem like he's asleep at the wheel and feeds into the narrative that he's incompetent.
Everything is giving that perception where they refuse to do interviews on like to the largest television audience in human history, when they refuse to do a cognitive test, when you have like you're trying to play it both ways by like saying how much you hate Netanyahu without reversing any of your policies. It's too clever by half in every single respect. And it's like the thing with Israel in particular, I think that what makes that tough for him, I think that the recent leaks talking about like how he is like making him look like he's getting rolled haven't helped. But the perception of chaos, just that in and of itself, I think is what's really hurting him. Because if you have a president who's asleep at the wheel, international crises breaking out every 6 months is what people like kind of see as a result of that. So when they ask him how he would handle the issue, and all he says is, well, if I was in charge, this would have never happened in the first place. That's compelling to people. It plays into the narrative that they think about the election. It plays into how they consider the candidates, and it allows Trump to avoid having any kind of divisive policy. Because, I mean, this type of stuff actually didn't happen when he was in charge. I don't think that was because of anything he did. A lot of what's happening now is a direct result of his own policies, like in Ukraine and Israel, I think directly as a result of that. But you can't like have an old guy who people think is like, I think is 86% think is too old to serve as president. That is not an idle judgment whatsoever. That is a very serious, like that it's over if people think about that. Like, people aren't just saying that just to say it. It's like a thing you can just ignore. That's a huge, like, supermajority opinion. It just all plays into this idea that Biden is not in charge, and it ties into Trump's one remaining strength, which is the idea that he's a strong leader, and he looks appealing only in contrast to Biden. It does not look appealing in contrast to anybody else. It's a matchup from hell for the Democratic side.
Okay, so you have the powers. You have Biden's ear. Okay, you're his top campaign advisor. What do you recommend to Joseph Robinette Biden and the Democratic Party in terms of messaging? How do you solve this problem? Now, obviously,
if I can't tell him to drop out,
well, no, you can't tell him to drop out. Obviously, that's the first thing. But you're not yeah, you push him.
Yeah.
You push him gently when he's trying to walk down the stairs.
Yeah, I open up the window and a slight breeze comes in.
No, but beyond that, okay, beyond the light breeze that takes him out entirely, he's still very much alive. He's in the hyperbaric chamber. They're rolling him out every now and then. What are the things that he has to do to fix the messaging issue?
He has to take every single media opportunity available. He has to start doing that yesterday. You can't do stuff that plays into. You can't beat the dementia allegations by acting like your candidate has dementia. Like you can't do stuff like refusing TV interviews. You can't do stuff like refusing a cognitive test, like the first time a president has ever refused.
Oh
to do that, I think. Like you you can't.
That was awesome.
Like I mean, it's like, what other conclusion are we supposed to come to here? Like what? How could you explain this if he actually is totally fine? It's like that thing that Jon Stewart said. It's like if he's totally with it and in control, why aren't you filming that? It's like, I don't think that I hope that they wouldn't be doing this if he's not actually like that. So you need to actually start projecting that. As for the specific issue of immigration, I mean, I don't really necessarily hate the idea of them saying Republicans killed a deal for politics. I think you can work with that in a certain way. Like it plays into Republicans caring about politics, not trying to solve solutions. But you have to make it just a general leadership question. You can't make it like a thing of how, oh, we're the real party on the border. It's like, we're the real party that actually cares about this. We're going to totally flip this. It has to be kind of just in the framing of like, these guys just care about this for political reasons. They don't actually care about it for like whatever they say they care about. It's just for votes for them. And like that plays into Trump being corrupt and dishonest. And it's just very bread and butter stuff. They've already beaten this guy before. They've beaten this party like a tremendous number of times. They haven't really lost an election year since 2016. And that was kind of like a fluke. Like, you don't have to like rethink your entire approach here. Like the immigration stuff in particular was a huge asset to them. Maybe there's not a way you can kind of go back to like saying that he put kids in cages when you're doing that yourself.
Yeah.
But just try to like don't try to reinvent the wheel. This guy's always been unpopular. Like, just kind of look like you're up to it. Look like you like project some level of competence. Just hit the basic stuff on democracy and abortion and competence, obviously. And this won't be hard. This should not be a hard election. This is not in any way hard election. The people haven't bought into what Trump is doing. They don't like him. He has a tremendous liabilities. He might be in prison before like election day. Like this, the only way they can lose it if they get in their own way. They seem very determined to do that.
Well, they're neutralizing the Fannie Willis Georgia RICO with a because, you know, Fannie Willis did the one thing that men are always allowed to do, but supposedly women are not allowed to do, which is have sex with the wrong person. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like they've they're working extra hard to absolutely neutralize that one court case, which I think is like pretty solid.
I heard that, like, from what she said, it wasn't going to be decided until 2025, which, like, if you're looking at these court cases in the context of the election, you're just only looking at the ones that can be decided before election day, which is pretty much exclusively the DC case. A lot's going to be decided about that soon, depending on if the Supreme Court decides to delay it or not, which could be very, very important. But I really, personally, the DC case is the only one I've really paid much attention to.
The thing that I care about the court is obviously that it will be televised because it's a state case rather than a federal one. So I think that well, one, it's great for me because I will sit there and do court watch nonstop. It's just endless content. Thank you so much, Fannie Willis, even though I don't like what she did to YSL, Free Thug. But but having said that, I do think that will have implications for the race as well. Constantly having Trump on camera in the court is going to only reinforce the narrative that he is like a crook, a criminal. It almost plays I am a believer that I think the last second Hail Mary in the last election cycle that really pushed Biden over the finish line, which many people get mad at me for saying this, was Donald Trump getting COVID.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Totally.
It's something that we totally, like, we never talk about for some weird reason, but it absolutely made people remember all of the most devastating aspects of COVID when the fucking president got it. Okay? Like, I think that's a huge deal. That was a huge...
Totally right.
that was a huge fucking deal. And I think that actually pushed Biden across the finish line. It was not like a minor thing. It was like the Jim Comey letter, the second letter. Like, that's a big deal. That was a big deal for Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely right. Biden actually, his numbers, the polling was tremendously off that year. Like, because of COVID, it made it hard for them. They oversampled a lot of liberals who were staying at home while conservatives were just doing whatever outside, so they weren't picking up their phones. The polling there was just really, it's not a permanent issue. It's a very specific COVID thing. But Biden's numbers before the debate and when Trump got COVID were actually narrowing significantly over September. It's kind of a thing that always happens with Trump. He has kind of cycles where he goes up and down. But after the first debate and after he got COVID, Biden numbers completely spiked. He was leading by nearly 10 points. And that provided him a big cushion for when Trump had like kind of a last-second surge when he went on a huge rally circuit like he did in 2016. Biden was leading by a lot more than Hillary was at the end, and he ended up winning very narrowly. I would say absolutely that was one of a lot of factors that sealed it.
Yeah, and I think Democrats don't realize that was like a major, that played a big role. And I think that what will happen now is like with the highly televised, like what's Biden's biggest weakness is his competence, his lack of competence, his senility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump's biggest weakness is how corrupt he is and how undemocratic he is. And when you have Trump consistently pictured in a court, inside of a courtroom over and over again, I think it reaffirms that position that he's corrupt and also a crook, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like the COVID, it's almost like the recycling of the COVID narrative that like it will really hammer on Trump's biggest fucking it'll really hammer on to the eyes of like the moderates and whatnot that Biden currently has locked down, regardless, that like Donald Trump is going to be the same kind of madness that you hated, that you will have to forcibly pay attention to politics, and you don't like that. Mm-hmm. And that's going to happen if Donald Trump wins again. So don't vote for him is going to be what is happening.
He gets
with the court cases,
the suburbs too. Like in 2022, Democrats, a reason why they did well was that their margins increased in the suburbs off of Biden's numbers in 2020. That happened in Georgia. It was a pretty like crazy thing to watch. So yeah, and it'll spark a ton of interest. It'll be a huge circus. People who aren't normally paying attention to the election will they'll perk up when they hear that Trump is in a courtroom or Trump has like been convicted of a felony by a jury. That'll like if that comes like to be the predominant story like at the time of the election, like that could be the cause of a last second boost for Biden for sure. And polling right now currently has him leading, and hypothetical, even in polls where Biden is down, he is ahead, sometimes by very large margins, and hypothetical situations where Trump has been convicted. So I don't even think you need like Trump to actually be convicted. Just really like making like what's going on clear to people, what might be enough to really get this small Trump lead whittled down and get back into the black.
This is why I think like it's very, very hard to call it at this stage. Like people have like in either direction, especially because like
people have said that I'm equivocating or whatever. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know either. There are certain factors that benefit the candidates in one way. There are certain factors that benefit the candidates the other way. At this point in 2022, they hadn't even like the Dobbs decision hadn't even leaked. We didn't know what was going to happen. Like the most you can do as a commentator right now is just lay out the different factors and narratives that are going to be working, and like try to figure out what that says about where the public is at. I think that right now we're in a very non-ideological moment. We've had all the fights. It hasn't really ended in a definitive way. People are kind of sick of it. They're willing to accept a policy one way or the other as long as they think it works. They just want somebody who is competent in charge. And it's an election from hell because both of the candidates running cannot project the competence that you need to really seal the deal here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Ettingermentum, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
I'm on Ettingermentum on Twitter, and I have a newsletter. We had a big couple of days last week with the Kamala stuff and Biden and Trump dying. So check out that article. People really liked it. But yeah, I'm going to be doing election coverage for the next 9 months. We'll see how it goes. I will do my best. I think that's all any of us can promise. But thanks for having me on, Hasan.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
No
Kamala Harris is strongest soldier, Ettingermentum, everybody.
Yeah, that's where we are.
All right. Have a good one. Bye. Okay. It's reasonably likely that either Biden or Trump will die of natural causes before election day. That is also true. So that's what I also think as well. Anyway, I hope that that was a little bit more helpful for those who are still questioning where I'm coming from with my analysis, with what I'm saying. This is not a great situation, but never forget, of course, you did not just fall out of a coconut tree. You exist within the context of everything that you've experienced and everything that came before you, obviously. So that's something to always to consider.